morning. Welcome. I'm Mary Winters. I'm the host of your program, Visionary Aging, and the owner of About Senior Solutions. We are here to solve all of your problems as we age. We want you to age successfully, and we're here to empower you with choices and options and information. So we have a great guest on for you today, and I think it'll be very interesting for you to learn more about Gramps Jeffrey's book that he wrote regarding his own grandchildren and kind of the changes that we've had in grandparenting. Also, we're going to have Steve McCullough on with a caregiver question. We're going to have our fantastic Melinda, who will go through a nutrition tip with us. So let's go ahead and move on to our caregiver question.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Can you hear me? I'm good. Yeah, thank you. So what kind of a caregiver question did we get this week?
We have a great caregiver question. So comes in from one of our viewers, and they mentioned that their parents are living at home, and when they visit them, they notice that they eat a lot of TV dinners, and they want to know what they could do to have a more nutritious meal set up for their parents that are living at home.
I bet Melinda would have a really good answer for this too, but
right?
You know, there are some programs, and I think also it's not that the TV dinners are bad. I think you just really want to watch the sodium levels and some of that, especially with really wanting to watch that with blood pressure and so forth. So I would check some of those things, but there are also some programs that have been deemed nutritionally supportive. It'll send a hot lunch and then more like a sandwich and something cold for dinner, which is Meals on Wheels. That actually supports so many of our seniors, and you're able to get a little glimpse of the person every day when you're dropping the food off to know that they're all right. But if you wanted to order food, there are specialty chefs that do that. There's also things like Blue Apron. I think Martha Stewart has her food now. There are all kinds of things that you can get very specific to your liking. There are tons of food plans that you can actually say specifically that you need low sodium or specifically that you need a certain type of diet, and they will ship all of that to your home. It is frozen, but it's also an easy way for somebody who's single and living on their own to make a meal for themselves. So that is a great question. We'll have to ask Melinda something more too. Yeah, so we have a great guest today too, and his name is Gramps Jeffrey, and he's starting a whole new life as a children's author. So how about we go ahead and we'll chat with him a little bit, and I think he's going to hang on at the very end of the show. So
excellent. Looking forward to it.
All right, have a good one.
Have a great show.
Thanks. We'll bring on Gramps Jeffrey right now. So here we go. Hi, Gramps Jeffrey. How are you?
Great. I appreciate you inviting me to your show.
Yeah, absolutely. So you wrote this book. You obviously had a different life before writing children's books, but why did you decide to write a children's book?
I got to tell you, living this past year because of the pandemic caused by COVID-19 and isolation, except for being able to be with my family, really gave me a different kind of perspective and gave me time to watch and interact with my grandkids. I got to tell you, what a trip that was. You know, all six of these kids have different personalities. The one thing they do have in common is, you know, their sense of curiosity and how excited they do get when they do accomplish something. You know, watching them grow year to year and how they interact with each other really is the basis for this book. You know, what goes through a toddler's mind that parents are so desperate to understand? When does a toddler understand the difference between me and us? You know, this book explores how a family finds all that out together. You know, as a baby boomer myself, trying to understand the world, how it has evolved since I was 3 years old, is also part of this story. You know, my parents, they didn't have cell phones. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have cable TV. They didn't have remotes. I was my dad's remote. He said, son, go change the channel.
Exactly. You know? I think we were the remote. All of us were the remotes then.
Yeah. You know, so their definition of discipline is just so quite different than the way it is today. So I'll let the listeners kind of answer the question: is it better today than when we were growing up?
Who knows, right? I guess we can only say if we had a good childhood. But let me grab a couple of the photos, actually, or the art too that you put together in this. I think this is really precious. These are actually illustrations that you put together, really reminiscing like an image of your grandchildren, right?
Well, yeah, the story is really based on a true story. You know, it's based on Jordan, who is the one on the bottom right there, and he takes all of his cousins' toys and hides them, and then they finally find them, and then they figure out what they're going to do with it. And Olivia, who is on the other side over there, comes up with the brilliant idea, and this is a true story, that they all should give all these toys and all his birthday presents to the homeless downtown. And so that's how this whole story evolved. So all the pictures in the book are based on pictures I actually took of the kids, and then they went to the artist to go ahead and make them into a cartoon. But so that's the moral of the story: is, you know, at what age do we, you know, really begin to take responsibility for our actions? You know, is it 3 years old? Is it 13 years old? Is it 23 years old? You know, as a baby boomer, I have plenty of friends that are 63 years old that still don't take responsibility.
Still don't want to take responsibility, for sure. I have a couple more images here with you with your grandchildren, or your grandchildren reading the book too. So that must have been a lot of fun to do with them.
Well, you know, one of the great things of writing this book is how involved they got in the book. So you can see Olivia reading the book to Jackson, and, you know, this wasn't staged. That's what they did. In fact, one time they didn't know I was in the other room, but Olivia grabbed the book, and she grabbed a couple of her cousins. They ran underneath my desk, and she started reading the book to them. And, you know, they didn't hear me. They, you know, I was around the corner, and Levi says, "That's me in the bathtub," and Jackson says, "That's me with my dinosaurs." You know, so it was a great way also for them to relate with Gramps.
Yeah, that's great. That's a lot of fun. And now the little guy in the green, is that your youngest one? Is that your hero of the story? Or
and that's Baker. He just turned 2 years old. He and Jordan live in Orlando, Florida. I happen to be in Scottsdale, Arizona, and so I was lucky enough to go for his second birthday just a couple months ago. But yeah, and what's so interesting, as these kids turn 3, you can see it's the same thing. They're all struggling with me versus us versus taking versus sharing. It's just, it's a universal. So I think what happened in my family happens just about in every family in the world.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. And what a special lesson too that you were able to create with them and then share to so many other people. You know, I think our families are so kind of spread apart now. And I think you kind of have some statistics on how many grandparents are even able to grandparent their grandchildren anymore. And while some are actually doing the parenting, but it was kind of interesting. It was kind of a high number where our families are really kind of separated and not able to be with their grandchildren much.
Yeah, you know, you think about, at least when I was growing up, you know, I was lucky. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, and my uncle lived up the street. My grandmother lived 2 blocks over. And so we were all together. But in today's world, we're scattered all over the place. You don't have that opportunity. But, you know, one of the scary things about the numbers with grandparents is 30% of grandparents are classified as being remote, which means that they really don't get involved in the upbringing of their kids. So they may call them on their birthdays, and they may, you know, see them every Christmas, but they aren't involved. You know, think about it. That's 1 out of 3 of us that are just not involved in raising our children. And in today's world, with so many things going on, we've got to get involved. Now, I am thoroughly convinced this is the greatest generation of kids that have ever come along. You know, as soon as they come out of the womb, you know, they're exposed to the internet. They're exposed to all kinds of electronics, their cell phones and all that. You know, I wasn't exposed to the internet until I was 40 years old. These kids are coming out of it. Now, it's great. We need that. That's going to make them smarter than ever. But we need that balance where the parents and the grandparents and the cousins and the uncles get involved. In today's
Yeah.
world, with families being so scattered, it takes a village to raise a kid. It takes
It sure
it takes the aunt and uncle. We all have got to get involved because we need to complement what they're learning on the internet, which is great. We're going to make them smarter than ever with the real world. And that's why grandparents have got to get involved.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just wondering, what were some of the things that you learned from your own grandparents? And even their environment was so different. I remember mine even talking about having a horse and buggy still and buying their first car. So that's something that children just are not acquainted with really unless you grew up in a farm.
Right. And so that's why we have got to give these kids memories. I mean, you and I remember things our grandparents told us, and we're old. Yeah. So that's why we've got to be part of we've got to make that effort to do that. A lot of grandparents today say, I raised my kids, I raised them well, they'll take care of the kids. I got my own things to do. We got to, life is too short. When you think about it, COVID has, whereas people 65 and older are only 16% of the population, 75% of the people who died were 65 and older. Well, we're losing our generation right and left.
Right.
We've got to take advantage of what we have today. And so that's why we've got to get involved in these kids' lives.
Well, it's also why we have to stay really healthy too, because we want to be able to interact with young grandchildren. And so the healthier we stay and the more active and physically fit we are, then we're able to engage with our grandchildren too. And I think the other thing that's kind of interesting is people are having their families later now too. So that means we have older grandparents as well. So all of those things kind of play into how you have that relationship. But I think you're absolutely right. Just thinking, how do you interact and how do you make sure that those important people remain in your life and that they know who you are and you influence them? I think it's very, very special. So I applaud you for writing that book. That's fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Now, the one thing that we all should be taking away is that we've got to teach our children to read. One of the things grandparents can do is really get involved in the reading with children. Because there's all kinds of benefits of reading. So, picture a child, they're sitting on your lap as a grandparent. First thing you're doing is you're bonding with them. You got 20 minutes there, you're reading a book, you have a chance to really sit and bond, you have time to spend together. Another thing that's great about reading to your grandchildren is that it supports listening skills. Now, you and I both know in our professions that listening skills are the best skill we've developed. Because if we can't listen, we can't do anything. We can't sell. We can't help. We can't, communicate. So real young, if we can teach these children to require them to listen because they have to listen to the story, that's a great skill we can pass on to these kids. Another thing is the cognitive and language developments. There are many words in books that, you can explain. You sit there and explain. In fact, there's plenty of words that I don't understand. I have to look up. So it helps us pass that on. And then another thing is attention span. Little kids, 2, 3, and 4, they bounce off the wall. They run all right. But if you got them in your lap for 20 minutes, it helps with them keep concentration and self-discipline. And those are traits that will help.
Really great. Really great. Didn't even think about that. That's fantastic. Well, I have your contact information at the bottom. If you're listening versus being able to see this, it's grampsjeffrey@gmail.com or www.grampsjeffrey.com. Any other information that you want to give our viewers as far as getting a hold of you?
Oh, please, if anyone wants to continue this conversation, just email me at grampsjeffrey@gmail.com. I love to keep talking about this.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Will you stay at the very end and say goodbye to everybody at the very end with us?
Absolutely. Thanks.
Sounds great. All right. We will see you in just a minute then. Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and talk about somebody's birthday today, somebody who is 100. I can't believe she's 100. Maybe her picture's from when she was 80, but honestly, she looks so fantastic. Her name is Hilda, and I have to find her here. Maybe I'll find her intro first, and then we'll go ahead and bring her on. finding Hilda's picture. Maybe this is it. Here we go. Here we go. Here's Hilda. She is amazing. Hilda Tyron. She is originally from West Virginia and currently living in North Carolina near her daughter. She is a Red Hatter, and they will be celebrating her birthday. And they said if you want to know more about the Red Hat Society, they will share that with you too. But I think she's a beautiful lady, and I hope she has a fantastic birthday and enjoys her birthday year for sure. So have a great afternoon. Let me go ahead, and we're going to go ahead and add Melinda into our program here, and we'll learn some more about nutrition. Hey, Melinda, how are you? Oh, I'm going to unmute you there. Hey, how are you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hilda looks awesome.
Yeah,
She looks great.
I know. These are the people I want to look like, right? I want to look like Hilda when I grow up. So
yeah, exactly.
Something right, that's for sure. She got some great genetics, probably a little bit of both. But
yeah.
So tell us about a tip that you're going to share with us today.
I just wanted to expand on the caregiver question.
Sure.
There's, like you said, that's immediately what I went to when Stephen asked it, as all the delivery services that are available now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're available all across the US. One of my favorite ones that I get weekly is Daily Harvest, and Daily Harvest has soups and like what they call forager bowls, and so it's essentially it can be prepared in the same way as a TV dinner. You can microwave it, you can cook it on the stovetop, like it's very easy, but the foods are all very nutritious, and they're mostly organic. And I'm sure there's a lot more companies that do that. And I know that there's definitely companies in Southern California like Thistle that send prepared meals. So there's a lot of options now with our, kind of modern world and delivery services. Another thing that we can do for seniors is if we deliver, if there's an order through Postmates or DoorDash or some of those services, you can order, I tell my clients, you can order something for the next day for lunch, and then it's there ready. So there's definitely lots we can do with the delivery services and the meal prep. Like you said, Blue Apron is great. I love Green Chef. Green Chef allows you to choose even more so than Blue Apron sometimes, exactly like what types of foods you want and what kind of meal plan you want to follow. And what I like about Green Chef is they'll sometimes, like, the things come pre-prepared in the bags. So while Green Chef and Blue Apron are meal delivery services where you get the ingredients and you have to kind of put it together in 20 or 30 minutes, which might not be appropriate for some seniors, the Green Chef meal kits, they cut a lot of their vegetables are pre-cut, so you're just putting whatever's in the bag into the pan. So it can be very easy. Yeah.
And I think the other thing too to remember is it's really important to treat yourself kindly, and we know that we're alone, but sometimes it's nice to take that special plate out and maybe that special napkin or set something up for yourself, whether it's in front of the television or at the table to have your meal, and just not necessarily eat it in a box. I think it's nice to have, kind of set the stage for your meal. I think that's important too.
Absolutely. My husband and I, we have for dinner sparkling water a lot of times because it's just something a little extra, right? If you're trying to stay away from alcohol and you want something that's just a little bit more special for dinner, sparkling water is fantastic. And then the other thing we can add is a lot of the grocery stores nowadays have, not only do they have meals that like meal bars, like Whole Foods and Erewhon, that are, you know, super, super healthy grocery stores. Most grocery stores have this. But a lot of these grocery stores now deliver. They're part of the delivery services.
Yeah.
So you can even say like, you know, oh, I want the fresh food from the grocery store,
Right.
and have it delivered to your door.
Yeah, we had to do that a lot for clients at the beginning of COVID because we didn't know if we were supposed to go out. We were shipping a lot from mostly Ralph's. Actually, was very good and timely in how they would get things. Sometimes they would send something weird, but every once in a while they sent something weird. But most of the time we got exactly what we asked for. And I even saw somebody in the market the other day, and it was clear that they were just shopping for a delivery, which was really good to see. So definitely take advantage of that as well. And actually, I know there are busy families that are doing that so that they can spend more time with their family, have a meal together at the table, which I think is also great. And I think Gramps Jeff would probably appreciate that as well. I'm going to go ahead and we'll bring Stephen in really quickly, and then we'll bring in Jeffrey. But I wanted to, let's see, we also have the perk too. So I thought maybe Steve could talk about what's on the perk. So let me find Steve too. Oh,
I knew it. I saw that on my calendar. It was on like the Facebook calendar.
Yeah, I've got to find him here. So let's see where he is. Where's Steve? Let's see. Where did Steve go? Oh, maybe he dropped out.
I'm not stealing Steve's thunder, but I was very excited about the National Day.
I know. Well, I'm not seeing Steve, so maybe he dropped out. Let's go ahead and we'll bring in Gramps Jeff, and we'll say goodbye for the day. Bring him in, and here we go. Hi. Hi there. So what do you think about it being National Donut Day?
I think it's a great day to go out and have breakfast.
Yeah. The donut shops in LA will be busy today.
My mom used to love to bring chocolate donuts with custard in and give those to my kids when they were little. I think it's a little memory that they have with her for sure, which is really cool. So,
nice.
Steve, do you know what tomorrow is, or
I was only responsible for today. I do not know what tomorrow is.
Let's see what tomorrow is. I can actually bring it up. You have your National Day.
What is it?
National.
It's better and better, doesn't it?
Yeah. So if you'd like this, if you would like a free perk for the whole month of June, we'll keep sending them all year long. But if you would like that sent to you, we will do that.
I have a question for Gramps.
Yeah.
Gramps, you said you grew up in a small town in Ohio. Where did you grow up?
Zanesville, Ohio, suburb 50 miles from Columbus.
Yep.
Are you from Ohio?
I'm from Youngstown originally.
Oh, sure.
I'm from Westlake.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Outside of Cleveland. Yeah.
What kind of Buckeyes?
Oh.
We've got a lot of Ohio representing here.
I had family there 100 years ago. Does that count?
Yeah, it does.
It does. We'll claim you. That was a very safe neighborhood to grow up in. And I know you mentioned having your relatives live so close to you, and we had that too. And, it was nice to have people always, you're able to, as a kid, go out and explore and be a kid, but you always felt safe because there's such a huge safety net around you.
Yeah, you kind of figure out how do we keep in touch with our kids now when they're all scattered around? I'll give an example of something that we did. For some reason, these 3 and 4 or 5-year-olds love dinosaurs. They can tell you all kinds of names of dinosaurs. And I can tell you the small, medium, and large, but they'll tell you who eats meat and all that. So we found that the one commonality that they have, even when they talk to their friends, they always talk dinosaurs. So when they all left our house, we decided that every night we were going to take our 6 dinosaurs and put them someplace else different in the house.
Oh.
So one night they were in the refrigerator eating blueberries. Another night they were grandma washing dishes with soap on their nose. Another night they were playing the piano. Another night they were walking up the steps. So what happened was we became part of our routine with our kids that went back to Texas and Florida. They would take a bath, they would read their book, and then they would say, "What are the dinosaurs doing tonight?" So they would call my wife's iPhone, and we get on FaceTime, and they say, "Where's Gramps? Where's Gramps? What are the dinosaurs doing tonight?" So we had 50 different places around our house and outside, different nights that the dinosaurs were. So that was our way of keeping in touch with our kids. But I'm sure your listeners can come up with other ways or have done other ways to do the same thing.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. So I love it. So I'm gonna. It's almost like Elf on a Shelf in a way, but you know what? That you could do with anything, even your book. You could take your book and move it around.
Good idea. I like that idea.
So that's fantastic. Well, thank you, everyone, and I hope that you all have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy and be safe. And until next week, stay empowered and make sure that you create your vision of aging the way you want.
Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.